All right. Now we're joined by Hilary, who usually joins us at this time. And sad day for Dunedin this morning, Hilary, as we talk about the verdict in the bus case to start with.
Yes, I'm with the general consensus of there's no good in this. It's just
All bad. Yep.
all bad. Well,
Yep.
well, just sort of miserable for everybody involved, really.
Mm. Yes, I talked to Jules Radich about this morning, the Mayor of Dunedin, and he said that
Yes, I
things
heard
have
that.
improved. Things have improved at the bus hub. I don't know. I imagine after a dramatic event like this, they would, but that they even got to the stage where this could occur was pretty bad because there'd been numerous complaints leading up to this event of violent and aggressive and antisocial behaviour at the bus hub, particularly when school groups congregated after school. You might have thought a little bit of proactivity was in place, but no, it always takes a tragedy before something happens, yeah?
It seems to me very peculiar that hundreds of thousands of ratepayers, and it's the same ratepayers because at the most part, of money is spent at the hub for security. I don't know whether the regional council, you may know, um, ratepayers' funds who are funding security at the bus hub are from the public transport part of the bus, which is, of course, a targeted rate just for Dunedin people, or whether you guys in Cromwell are also paying, it's a general part of the ORC rates. Do you know that?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think you'll find that money from Central Otago, who don't enjoy a bus service, and from North Otago and from South Otago, who none of whom enjoy bus services, goes to subsidise, that is correct, the Dunedin bus service. It's an appalling misuse of public monies. But just
So
on that, can
if
I
you have,
ask, you've said to me this morning, and I wasn't aware of this, so good on you, that the government's not only reducing bus subsidies, so the amount of money that public transport gets to spend upon itself, but preventing councils from replacing with ratepayer funds. I wasn't aware of that. Where did you pick up that?
yes, yeah. Well, what they've done is, I think what they've put out is that they've had a list, and you will have seen it. Well, I think you will have the regional council. And what's happened is that they've said we're reducing our subsidy, which they had been paying sort of half of the costs of running the buses or whatever, and the
Yeah.
rest of it's paid for partly fares and partly by subsidies from the ratepayers. Central government's done two things. It's paid, and Josh might be able to find it while we're talking. They've reduced over a period. They've said in the next 5 years, the percentage we will pay will go down over that period. So we're just warning you now, get it down over a period. And I think in Otago's case, not far off the amount that they used to pay, because years ago they used to pay more like 25% or something. But at the time, they've said, and you will not make this money up from ratepayers.
Right.
You will have to find some money to cover that, and their people are sort of naively saying, well, we can sell more of the back of the bus advertising and that'll sort it all out, which quite frankly they're selling it all already. But it's interesting because it's the opposite of when councils say our rates have to go up big amounts because central government's making us do stuff. This is sort of the opposite. They're saying you will not use ratepayers' money to further subsidise the buses or to make up for our NZTA money not coming in. So
Right.
it's very much sort of the opposite of what they've done. And I wonder whether they might try that in other places too.
I mean, I think it's a lovely idea. People should pay for the service they receive. It's absurd that people living 220 kilometres away from Dunedin should be paying for their bus service through their rates. It's just a travesty. But nonetheless, Here's a question for you.
But it's true other places. It's true in
Oh, that's
Auckland and
right.
things too.
Wellington,
So
Christchurch,
yeah,
I
and
think Palmerston
in
North,
Invercargill,
yes, is another one.
Invercargill's just come out and said that they might be putting their fees up from $2.60 to $4 or something. And the report that they got said something a bit peculiar to me. Well, one of them said, yeah, well, you might get reduced, because the argument, of course, is that you'll get reduced people using them. And the report that came out in Invercargill said, well, that there's going to be a minor decrease perhaps in passenger numbers. We think about 30%. Well, 30% wouldn't usually be
It's a
thought
hell
of
of a
as
lot.
minor.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But it's
In fact,
sort of guess whatever they...
it starts to make it uneconomic, because it's the amount of fares that you take through your bus or through your B card or wherever it's going to be that supplements your service. So if that doesn't come in, you're going to have to cut your services, aren't you?
I'd say so. And not only that, but the what the regional council does, which I think stealing from Peter to pay Paul, as it were, or Peter today to pay Paul tomorrow, is that the targeted rate for buses runs in a deficit often, which means that they're spending council's money today that today's ratepayers aren't paying. So tomorrow's ratepayers have to pay it. And so they're not staying within the papers you will have seen that councils don't stay within their targeted rates, which I think is a disgusting way of carrying out your business, because if you don't, just because you happen to have other pieces of income, so you've emptied out that jam jar, and that jam jar is what those people, the current ratepayers, pay for that targeted rate. You've emptied out that, and you've more than spent it. You shouldn't be able to do that. It's just bullshit.
Agreed. No disappointment there. Well, no disagreement from me. But can I just say on that issue, public transport only works in this country, it seems, if, I think Wellington must be the exception, is it, for its trains? But it only seems to work if it's subsidised by other people. So there's always a significant group of people, particularly those in cars, who are, or staying at home, who are subsidising those who travel to and from work, usually on public transport. Is there any good case for subsidy, or should you always pay the full cost of the service?
Well, you never are anywhere in the world. And on a really good day, even with the Wellington units, the train system, which is sort of uniquely situated in ribbon development sort of thing, so people can stop all the way along out to all the places beginning with P, Paikokariki and Plimerton and starting at Pararua, but whatever. They disappear off along those lines. But they're all at least 50% sort of subsidised by NZTA before they start, so they don't even think about that half. They only pay half on a good day. And our buses cost more than $10 or something to get, and people pay $2 or something. There's no...
Yeah, that's right.
It would be sort of principled at some level, I guess, to say, and stand on the principle of saying, I think that it is appropriate for fares to be 80% of what it actually costs to run a buses, or after the government subsidy, whatever that is, to just say
But
something
would
like
public
a
transport
percentage
in New
that is
Zealand collapse,
reasonably
though,
high.
Hilary? If it was a full... here's the question. If it wasn't subsidised by ratepayers, in other words, it is a direct subsidy, by the way. I mean, it's taking money out of who don't use a service and giving it to them. Why? Because they travel on a bloody bus. But if it wasn't giving that subsidy, would public transport collapse? I mean, let's take Dunedin as an example. You're paying, I think, $2 to go anywhere in the city, which is an excessively minor amount of money, subsidised by...
Including Palmerston, which isn't
Yeah,
exactly in the city.
which is, what, 35, 40 kilometres away. Absurd. But here's the next question, though. Would I still go, would I still travel if it was $4 or $5 or would I get in my car? I suppose it was $5 there and $5 back. That's $10 a day. I've still got to find parking though for my car, don't I? Which is going to cost me as well. So there's still, I would have thought, a cost advantage to travelling public transport, yeah?
I suspect it changes more than that. It changes where you live. So you can now live in Palmerston more cheaply, but that's partly because it
$2
has
to
been
get
a
into
distance
town.
away, and it's cost you petrol and things, and that's why it's cheaper to live in Palmerston, because whenever you want to do anything, you have to travel. But if it's cheap enough, there's no sort of, there's not a lot of principled reason why you would subsidise it at that level. I guess there's some principled reasons why you would allow people at the bottom to have some subsidy. But if you were doing that, you might do like the disability mobility money. The government pays 50% of the taxi fares and things from people who have a mobility card. And so you might decide that some people, and in fact, what I think you'd start by doing, if you were doing the low-hanging fruit and things, you would be saying that commuting sometimes and school kids are worth doing. You know, you're getting much more bangs for your bucks for those ones, and that you actually would give people subsidised taxis or minivans or something from time to time. What you might do is say, for instance, if Mosgiel people want to come into town, here's 3 times a day they can book in for a minivan service or something and run it through the private taxi sort of arrangement, so you're not having to have a whole organisation to set up in advance bus contracts for years and new electric buses and
To be
all
honest
sorts
with
of things.
you, my eyes glaze over when public transport's mentioned in this country. I don't get on public transport because I don't want to get to have some psychotic person, alternatively a 13-year-old, with a knife beside me. So that's the end of that.